Alright, so welcome to the Working with Teens workshop. This is another one that's like kind of hard to not have a real discussion with you guys face to face, but we'll still get through it. So the main part of this is talking about like why teens are complicated to work with. There's a whole lot of different reasons. They obviously are like older than the youngest campers for sure. Some people think that they're too old to treat like other campers or too young to treat like other adults, and we just want to make sure you are thinking of them as your campers. But there are different ways to react with them because they're not 5 and 6 years old. They're 14, 15, 17-ish area. So awesome. We'll just dive right in. Alright, so the first thing we want you to think about is, think about a scenario where you're with kids, teens if possible, and you were dealing with an issue or problem and you really, thought you had a great outcome or thought that a camper really helped you out or another kid really helped you out or you felt really confident in what you were doing. And while you're thinking about that, we want you to ask yourself these questions. So, why were you successful with that particular camper? What was it about the issue or situation that made you feel confident? And how did you know what to do or what to say to the camper to help? If you haven't gone to camp before and you obviously haven't been with a camper, just think about another situation where you helped someone who was, a teenager or something through something going on in their lives, and just kind of answer those questions. So what we've come to find through doing these workshops is a lot of the answers will come, from these, like getting to know the campers as individuals, using your past experience, and not being afraid to try. Be confident in your ability to help them, and just help them get through those things. It's mostly just all about communication, being open to helping them through different things. It's really not as crazy as it sounds, but some people get a little scared to do so. So jumping right into the section 2, enhanced programming, we want to pose another question for you, so obviously think about it for a second, if not just move on. So in your experience, what are the most fun and engaging activities for teens? We have come up with a couple of them. So different pragmatic outcomes, so leadership, initiative, advanced communication, group work, etc. Enhanced roles or responsibilities, so kind of having them help out a little bit more with the younger kids, help you around the unit a little bit more, and more in-depth debriefing or processing. So just with each activity, kind of take a little bit more time, a little extra time to really talk about what went down, things like why we did certain activities, and things like that. Alright. Awesome. So the most important thing about being with teens and having situations and problems with them is dealing with the big stuff. So I'm going to spend a lot of time going through these couple of sections here. Obviously, if you have more questions about any specific scenarios, you're more than welcome to reach out to us, but it's kind of hard to have a discussion one way. So, alright, so why are teens scary for some adults? That is because we don't really know how to deal with these kinds of situations, because they're actively dealing with more sex and sexuality, drugs and alcohol, death, suicide, mortality, and violence. That comes, kind of self-explanatory, like we were all teenagers once. So there are 3 sections to dealing with these kinds of big issues. Why, when, and how/what, which is, they kind of go hand in hand, but we're going to kind of go through them. So why? Why do they want to talk about this stuff, particularly with you? I love how it says duh right here. That's funny. Because you're cool. You're a role model to them. Like, they look up to you. They trust you. They're looking for validation that they are normal and going through normal things, which when you look back at like when you're a teenager, these are all the same things that you wanted. If you had older siblings, you wanted all of your friends to validate that you were cool, and you were going through the same things, like they're not alone. So when do they want to have these kinds of conversations? Obvious times, cabin chats, one-on-one times after some crazy trigger or event, but not obvious times. Also, whenever, such as we could be taking the bus to the lake or something, and they could ask you some crazy questions. They could be someone who's not even in your cabin asking you crazy questions, and you'd have to be ready to respond, which is not always easy. So the real questions then are, how do you respond and what do you say? So how are you supposed to respond? There are two answers to this question. Generic. We don't have these kinds of conversations at camp. Talk to your parents or other adults at home. Most of the time, especially with the kids that we have at camp, it's really easy just to tell them, hey, these aren't really the conversations that we have at camp. If you really have questions about it, you can ask your parents when you get home, but we don't really like to have those conversations at camp because there are younger kids around, just general answer. And with our kids, they're normally respectful of that, and they won't ask you any further questions. Second is talk to them in ways that will not influence them. Your values are for you. It's not your job to make sure they share your values. So just because you believe it's okay to do something doesn't mean that it's okay for them. So just make sure that you're being respectful to them. They look up to you. If you say it's okay to do something, they're going to go with it. They're going to run with it. So just make sure in all honesty, I like to stick with this one, so we don't have that conversation at camp. It's really easy. They'll back off and you don't have to talk about it again. So this one, how do I share my opinion and information without influencing them? Remember, you're a role model, not an educator. So, like I said, be a role model to them, and there's definitely a difference between a role model and an educator. So an educator, just so we are all on the same page, is someone who purposely gives you ideas, values, and beliefs, someone we listen to because we are supposed to due to their role or position. So that's like a teacher, like if they're teaching you math, you're going to do it the way that they teach you because you're supposed to. A role model, something a little bit different, someone that makes statements and choices that are consistent with good ideas, positive values, and principled beliefs. Someone we choose to or are compelled to listen to due to an intrinsic desire for connections and identification. So this is someone that you will do with, you're going to follow in their footsteps because you agree with their beliefs and because you consider them to be a positive role model to you. So these are just, some things that are differences between role models and educators. You can read through that on your own time if you'd like. But that is pretty much it. So the best thing to do is to just, be aware that teens are probably going to ask you some deeper questions than, the orange or yellow units are going to ask you. And just be prepared and know how to handle it. And if you don't know how to handle it and you're scared about it, you can ask your unit leaders before just in case, or you can come talk to me, Burrito, Luna, anybody. Honestly, the best thing to do is ask questions and be prepared. So, and of course, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. But that is it for the Working with Teens workshop.